I do. By the way, thank you very much for your testimonial letter for me. It's very useful.
No problem. No problem.
Very useful to support my proposal.
I wish you luck.
Yeah, thank you. I hope so.
How is situation with COVID, with the pandemic in Semarang?
Yeah, still red zone.
Uh-huh.
Still in the red zone.
Because here, you know, the number of people is growing. More and more people are ill in Lithuania. Yes, more people, yeah. So perhaps next week we will be teaching only online.
See. Yeah.
At the moment, you know, we are having class meetings with students.
Yeah. Okay. So we still online teaching. We can we still use method of online teaching until the end of year, I think. Yeah, in the end of semester. Yeah, and the issue of start from November, maybe the government will launch the vaccine. Yeah. What about in your country? How about in your country?
At the moment, it's getting more difficult. The summer, it was okay during summer, you know, but now number of people is growing who are ill. Yeah. And they are imposing new rules. So some form of shutdown again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pak Edo. Because Edward still in the next.
Bu.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you start right now? Pak Edo?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang, salam sejahtera bagi kita semua.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning for Prof. Almantas. Thank you for your participation in this meeting. First of all, thanks to Allah Almighty, because of His blessing, we could be here in the meeting once again in the session of manuscript coaching. This program is the part of visiting professor program that organized by Department of Architecture Engineering Faculty, Diponegoro University. As you all know, that in here we invite several professors and some of activity, and this manuscript coaching is the part of activity we plan. And of course, thank you very much for Prof. Almantas that accompany us time by time in several activities, several sessions. Thank you very much for your attention and for your willingness to join us. And of course, thank you for students. In this class, there are students from master degree and also students from doctoral degree. And actually, some students have submitted their manuscript. So so maybe I think Prof. R has explained that maybe not now. Prof. R will review your manuscript, but maybe next time because the limited time. Okay, to start this session, let's say together Basmalah as a sign and as an opening. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you. And I will invite Dr. Edward Pandelaki to moderate the session. Pak Edward, all is yours. Oh, don't forget, Pak Edu.
Yeah.
Okay. Before this meeting,
Yeah.
don't forget to take a picture together.
Oh, okay. So please turn the camera on so we can take picture of you all.
Okay. Pak Satria.
Yes, Bupati. Okay.
Don't forget to brush your hair.
I'll count to three.
Brush your teeth.
1, 2, 3. Okay, that's enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Pak Edward, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Bati. So thanks again to Prof. Almantas. Good morning to you.
Morning.
It's about 10 a.m. 9 a.m. in
It's 9:40. 9:40. 20 minutes to 10.
So it's good. It's already afternoon here, 13:40 right now. So I hope that everything is good in Lithuania. And thanks for your time to give us the Manuscript coaching for us in the Department of Architecture. So today we have, like what Ati just said, that we have the doctoral students as well as the master students who join this session. So the master students actually right now they are taking the course of what is prathesis in English. So before the final assignment, the thesis, so they have to make the preparation for the title of the research that they are going to do in the fourth semester. So right now they are in their third semester. So right now they also have to write prepare one paper, because in our master program, the students also required to write one paper in an academic journal for their graduation. So I think what Professor Almantas will share with us today will be suitable for the doctoral students and the master students, as well as for us in the academy as an academician and also as a researcher, because one of our responsibility is to search for a problem until how we can publish the research and the answer of the problem in an academic journal. So we have about 75 minutes to 3 o'clock. I heard that Prof. Almantas will have another activities at 3 o'clock Indonesia time, so I won't waste the time. So I would like to ask Professor Almantas maybe to share some material to us today. So please, Prof. Al, you can begin to share the materials with us. Thank you.
I hope I can start. Yeah. I
Yes,
hope I can start.
please.
Okay. Just I would like to let you know that I was not informed that I have to show some articles. You know, so I don't have anything uploaded on my computer screen.
It's okay.
So I won't be talking about particular papers, but maybe we can organize this session so that I will tell some remarks about how articles, how submissions are being approached and judged in an international publication. What do editors expect from the authors, and why we occasionally select some articles and refuse the other articles. Of course, it is very difficult to speak in an abstract way because any journal, if it is not very much specialized, usually while editing a journal, we receive very different submissions. Some articles are historical. Some articles deal with form and aesthetics. Some articles deal with technical issues. So it is sometimes very difficult, so to say, to speak about all these very different submissions. But generally, first of all, I would say that when we receive any new submission, we try to have a look, some general look at the paper, how it is structured, and usually in a journal, the editor-in-chief, the editor, he looks, so to say, at the contents of the article. And of course, you should also understand that not a single editor is not an expert in all the fields, because we receive very different material. So the editor is never, except maybe some cases, is not an expert in that particular field of the article which is submitted. But the main, so to say, idea of the editor looking at the paper is to see whether the submission, whether the article has some potential for international audience. And then, of course, the technical issues. Of course, we always every journal has requirements. And requirements are sometimes rather different. Because, for example, in our journal, the Journal of Architecture and Urbanism, we provide certain recommendations online to our authors. So first of all, each person should familiarize himself or herself with what kind of articles we publish and what articles we do not publish. Then, of course, it is very important because we have any journal has a limited space. So sometimes we get very interesting. Yesterday, for example, we were reviewing new submissions to the journal, and there was very interesting article, but we refused to accept it simply for the reason that it was 2 times larger than our recommended length. So this is too big article for the journal. And if we publish this article, I cannot publish 2 articles of 2 persons. And the idea is that we publish about 20-22 articles per year. So actually, and these are, so to say, formal requirements. The publishers require no less than 20 articles to be published, because if we don't have 20 articles, some databases refuse to so to say, show our content. There are various kind of technical formalities when you deal with various databases. So let me get back to the issue. First, my advice when you are sending any article to any international journal is to read the requirements very attentively. What kind of papers we want. The other suggestion is that it is not only important to read the formal requirements or recommendations of the journal, but also to browse previously published articles. What kind of articles have already been published? How they look like? What is discussion going on? What are the themes? Also, when you are publishing with international journals, it is also important to see what kind of material, especially from your country, has already been published. And I must admit that sometimes I get too many articles from certain countries, and then we stop for a while, for half a year or several months. We don't accept even very interesting submissions, simply for the fact that we have accumulated a surplus of articles from a particular country. Well, let me give you an example. At the moment, we have stopped receiving articles from some countries like Iran, Turkey, and to a certain degree Indonesia, because we have accepted and peer reviewed, and now I have a waiting list. I have a waiting list of articles already from these countries. And with international journals, we try to have some proportions, because it's not national, it's not even regional journals. So we have to respect our readers who want to have a very wide, so to say, perspective, So usually in a year we try to publish a variety of articles coming from different regions, different countries. So if you see that the journal has published already many articles from your country, my suggestion would be to choose another journal which has a smaller amount of articles. Now, also, when we judge articles before sending them to peer review, usually we try to assess, some what problems are discussed. And if we see that already there were lots of articles discussing the same problem or the same issue, we usually do not accept any more articles of this kind, because if it gives just very small new information, if information is not relevant, even if it might be an interesting article, but usually then we say no, and then we thank the author and we say that sorry, but your article is not accepted for further peer review. Sometimes when people, when authors, they get a message that your article will not be accepted for peer review, they sometimes think that maybe there is something wrong with their article as such. We do not judge at this stage. We do not judge, so to say, the quality, because it's the job of peer reviewers, so to say, to judge the very quality of the article. But we simply look at some general things, whether it can be interested, whether the article can be interested to a large number of readers, whether the problem that is brought to discussion can be relevant to people, for example, living outside that country. And of course, the priority usually is given to those articles that examine a kind of that contribute broader to discussing and analyzing certain knowledge. Now there are some more things when you are thinking about sending your article to an international journal. Usually, when I receive a new submission, I look. I do some reading of the text, and one of the things I usually do, I look at the literature. I look at the literature, what sources the authors are using. And often we refuse to publish an article which is based only on local sources, because the idea of publishing a journal in an international, publishing an article in an international journal is that it contributes to, so to say, a general level of knowledge. It brings something new, maybe from that region, maybe from particular country, maybe from particular city, but any article should be, so to say, viewed in a certain context. And the context is, of course, contemporary scholarship. Because if you want to publish an article in an international journal, so it should be interesting not only to the people at your university or in your country. So anyone who is reading this journal, he or she should have some context, and the familiar context you can judge from what kind of literature the people are using, what kind of research, so to say, they are applying into their work. And if you don't find the most important publications, if you don't apply, so to say, the most important and most recent theoretical material, then of course we think that maybe this is too early to bring a particular research, so to say, to the attention of international audience. Now, another important thing from the editor's point of view is whether the article is comprehensible to different readers. You know that there are different, so to say, concepts of architecture. In some countries, architecture is viewed as an engineering discipline. In some countries, especially in Europe, in Western Europe, we view this as a part of humanities and as a discipline related to arts. So, of course, architecture is classified in different ways, and a good article should be written in such a way that any intelligent person, an architect or a historian or critic theorist, can read and understand. So to say, even, you know, maybe he is not that interested in some technical details, but he or she must understand what the text is all about, and so to say, be able to understand, so to say, the main points, the main aspects that are discussed in the article. Sometimes the authors who sent their research, they forget that you should formulate very precisely what research problem you are discussing. What is, so to say, what is the issue that you are bringing into focus? The other, of course, question, whether this problem is original. So sometimes you can see that people are discussing the problems that have already been approached, discussed, analyzed, and they fail to present anything new. So also it is important to have at least a brief review of current contemporary literature to show that first of all you know the state of arts in the field, that you know the most important researchers who are discussing these questions, and you also should show that you are making some contribution to the field. Because if you are just overviewing everything that has already, you know, sometimes if an article is historical, of course, then it is important to have a deep and very extensive, so to say, overview of the problem. But with many articles that discuss non-historical issues, so we usually expect them to provide a brief discussion of current literature, and in the introductory part, of course, to say what new, so to say, perspective you as an author are bringing to the analysis of this particular question. Now, sometimes we also refuse to peer review and to accept articles that are very narrow in scope. And sometimes the articles are very interesting, but we have very huge difficulties in finding reviewers. They are very narrow, they are very specialized, and then, of course, the question comes, who will read them, you know? If the article will be read by 5 or 10 people only, then it's no sense to sending and publishing it in an international journal. Yeah. Now, what else? So, of course, generally, the structure of the article is very important. So every article that would be potentially be capable of being published in an international journal should have a very precise structure. So to say, the formulation, the introduction, the formulation of your research question, of your, so to say, research idea. Sometimes discussion of methods, but that depends on what kind of article you are, what kind of problem you are researching. Sometimes there is no need to be very specific about this issue. Then, of course, the discussion of the problem, and certain conclusions at the end of the paper. Usually, when I, as an editor, when I get an article, there are two parts into which I pay special attention. You know, because we get every week I get maybe 10, 20 or even more articles, and not a single editor has the time to read them thoroughly. You usually, as an editor, you don't read it, like you read published article in which you are interested in. So usually I pay the most attention to the introduction. I look at the introduction and see if the article looks as it has any potential being published, whether the problem is really interesting to me and also to other people, potentially other people, and whether I can understand what the author is going to discuss in that particular article. Sometimes, and that's quite an often problem, that introductions are very clumsy. They are too long. They do not present a clear picture, and then they don't discuss what has already been done before this particular article. What issues have already been discussed? What issues have been clarified? And when you don't see that the author provides anything new, substantially new, then you usually say no to the author, and you reject the article. The other important part at which I always look as the editor of an international journal is the conclusions. So I look at the conclusions, whether there is some relevant so to say points have been clarified, whether there are some potential suggestions for other readers, for other scholars, and sometimes you get the impression that the article has not arrived at any serious conclusions, or sometimes these conclusions are either too weak or they don't support, so to say, the arguments. So this is basically what I was just talking now. This is, so to say, the editor's viewpoint. What I, as the editor of a big international journal, what are my priorities before accepting or rejecting an article. I must also admit that sometimes we refuse to publish articles who are too much technical. When there are only formulas, when there are only figures and various kind of supplementary material, and there is no coherent narrative, there is no substantial contents before that. The author provides a lot of technicalities, bringing a lot of figures and a lot of mathematical things, and so on and so on. So then we think that perhaps such a article should be sent instead to some extremely specialized technical journal, and then we refuse to send it to peer review. So this is basically the editor's viewpoint. Before, let me stress again that what I am speaking now, this is before we make a final decision whether to accept a paper for further analysis or just to say thanks to the author and send him a message that we have opted not to go any further. Usually at this stage, the author gets no explanations. Sometimes I get letters. The authors want me to explain why this particular article was rejected. And then of course, I write a very brief note that sorry, we don't. What you expect is a review of your article. As an editor, I don't review articles. I simply make decisions whether it goes further or it is rejected. And of course, then the author, sometimes we make very brief notes that, especially if the article is technically not well prepared, or some substantial parts are lacking, or if it looks like students' paper rather than the research. Sometimes we write a very brief note. But generally, the authors should rethink if they get a message that sorry that your paper is not accepted. Maybe they should look for another journal. And sometimes it has nothing to do with the quality of the paper. Sometimes it deals with maybe that it is not. It may be marginal article which is not a priority of this particular journal, or maybe this simply means that we have already published too many pieces that year from that region or from that particular country, or even sometimes on that particular issue. Because majority of the journals, international journals, they are not highly specialized. So you want to publish as an editor, you want to publish a large variety of papers to have a wider readership, because editors are also concerned how many people, how many individuals are reading this journal, because this depends. Also, how many articles will be read and used in other research, how many of them will be quoted. So this might simply mean that this particular journal has excess of articles already that have already discussed this problem, and maybe we think that the problem has already been sufficiently discussed. So we think that the article is not contributing anything significantly new to that particular issue, and then of course, why should we publish the article? So now let me get back also to the list of literature. Of course, recently when we were reviewing new submissions, we rejected several articles from countries like India and some other places because they had too little. The list of literature was very local. Or from Turkey, we often get articles when people are referring only to their colleagues' work. And then, of course, it's very, very difficult for us to decide whether the knowledge presented in this particular article is really of international dimension. So if we don't see any kind of hint that the author knows, so to say, extensively the most important literary sources, the most important research in this particular sphere that is already available internationally, of course, then as editors, we have some reservations. Not a single editor knows. I know, of course, some fields in which I work myself. I know what is being published in some countries, but of course, I don't know about each and every country. So usually it's highly advisable for a potential author when you are using references, when you are making references, to have a very clear picture of contemporary state of arts in this particular sub problem or problem. So your reading list that is added, your references usually tell how much knowledge you have in this particular subject. And this, if the author uses only local knowledge, so usually we make a guess that maybe it is not yet ready, it is not yet prepared to be shown to international audience. And also, you see, we editors, when we are discussing whether the article goes for peer review, we simply we are also thinking about the experts. You know, we need to find at least two reviewers, two competent reviewers who are PhDs and who have published something in the field. So before we take this decision, we think that we will be wasting people's time. And we have to make a decision whether this particular submission is worth taking people's time. So let me sum up. So the introduction is very important, the conclusions, and of course the list of literature, the references which are used in particular article. And then, of course, if we decide that the article is interesting enough, if the author is formulating a problem in an intelligent way, if the introduction is precise, short, and you don't need to read it 2-3 times in order to understand what is going to be discussed, and if the reading, if the reference list includes quite substantial knowledge and up-to-date knowledge, you know, sometimes, you know, when we deal with historical articles, of course, then there are different requirements for the references. You know, some of the references might be published very many years ago. But when author is discussing a contemporary problem, of course, it's important to see how much of new material, how much of newly published research he or she is using. And then, of course, on the basis of this kind of judgment, then we send invitations to reviewers, trying to find qualified reviewers. Usually, I try to find, for each particular article, I try to find one reviewer from the country who knows, so to say, the local context. And the other, usually we try to select the other reviewer who has some international, so to say, perspective, you know, who can evaluate article whether it says something new on the international level. Of course, often it depends on the availability of reviewers. I have some submissions who are still waiting for reviewers because we have asked 10, maybe 15 people to review one or another article, but they refuse for some particular reason. And then, of course, we think that we as editors made maybe a bad judgment deciding to accept the article for peer review. So I think that these are my introductory remarks, and then perhaps you could give me up some more precise questions so that we can have a more concrete discussions. My idea was to present you a picture how research is being published in international journals, and what are, so to say, the steps of an editor, and how this selection process works. But now we could discuss some more detailed questions, if of course you have some.
Okay, thank you, Prof. So we have many suggestions for you and advice from you about how to submit an article in the international journal. So there's a lot of advice from you. As I could take a note that the first is to read the requirements, and the second is to browse the previously published article in this journal related with the theme of the journal. And then the third is about literature or reference. And also you mentioned that it should have a good structure. So you mentioned about introduction, how an author should write for the introduction of his or her articles, which have the potential to be continued with the editor-in-chief to be peer-reviewed. And then the research ID, method, discussion, conclusion, also reference is also important. You may.
Yes.
Because it shows the insight of the author, which is not only local references that have been used by the author. So that's several points from you as I can take the notes. So I would like to invite the students or the audience or attendants of this discussion to ask questions or comment to Professor Almantas. So please raise your hand if you have any questions or comments to Professor Almantas. I have one question, Professor Almantas. So you mentioned about an article that is very narrow. Could you explain more about the narrow article?
Okay. I will tell, from my experience as the editor, sometimes we get some articles about some place, and then I try to see, what kind of place it is. The author is writing about, when the location, is unknown to everybody, then I'm always thinking, how people will be able to connect, this research, if the place is totally unknown. Sometimes I get this, say, some articles, from some continent or country, which are discussing, some villages. Then you see, if you can connect the problem, to other places, everything is okay. I don't need to know all the specific locations, but sometimes you have the impression that there are certain issues or certain aspects which are very, very local, and they are not maybe not discussed in a broader context. Because you see, any location as such is not important. Whether the knowledge that you get about this particular location, whether it can be discussed on a broader level. Now, the other kind of articles that we often say no, sometimes we receive very kind of just the issues, they are very, very small issues, The author maybe is interested in discussing very small detail. And then I don't mean that, people should not discuss if they are interested in that particular material. But then my idea is that there are some specialized journals in that particular field. And if I have a feeling that this is something that is of interest only to a very narrow, very small group of people, about some architectural detail or about some tiny technical issue, technological issue, then we usually say no. And my advice is go to a specialized journal, very specialized, because there are journals that only discuss, say, technical issues. Or, for example, last year we had too many submissions about very specific architectural practice, for example, about school buildings. You know, so we published 1 or 2 articles, but then we said no, because if you are interested only in school architecture, you should go to these journals that are specialized in the field, you know, who are dedicated only to this type of typology of buildings. The same applies, you know, if I will get, you know, too many articles discussing some, say, hospital architecture, and bringing me, you know, different research of one particular country or particular hospital, then I would most probably say no, you know, because they should go to a specialized journal which discusses, so to say, relations between health and architecture, physical health and architecture. So each author should decide if the issue that he or she is discussing is relevant on a kind of broad international level. There are very many good articles that can be published on national level, you know, if they are dealing only with particular country and with particular experience of that country. If they cannot be, so to say, compared to other research, or they are not, so to say, no, this what I mean. This what I mean is narrow. Or sometimes the approach, if the author is using, well, from the West, sometimes I get articles which the authors are interested in semiotics as a methodology. So there are lots of journals which are interested in semiotics, and then we advise authors to go and publish there because they have experts, they have, so to say, the context there. So if this particular method is only interested to a small group of researchers, then I would characterize the article as kind of presenting a narrow approach.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Prof. Al. So, yeah, if it's too narrow, you will suggest the
now,
author to...
one more, of course, important problems today. Well, in my journal, we are receiving very many articles which present case studies. You know, for example, I work with some medical researchers, medical doctors. You know, so there are in medicine there are international journals that only deal with case studies. In medicine, there are specialized journals. They are only discussing case studies, and that's so to say, of course, very important because from different countries they bring these studies, and then people can compare what's going on. When you are working in an international journal, you know, if I published only case studies, that would my journal could not run, you know, because people can't make, you know, case study from Turkey, case study from Germany, case study from India or Indonesia, and that's it, you know. So usually we try to we take some articles which are potentially interesting because we think, okay, these case studies might be interesting to people in different countries, you know, because the problem might be, it is not important that it discusses a particular country or particular city, but the problem is very interesting, and it, of course, different people will read it. But if sometimes I get the impression that the problem is only local, it cannot be generalized. Now, these days, we get a lot of articles about, say, various technical qualities, for example, thermal qualities of a building. So we often refuse because I think, you know, an international, we have North and South, you know, we have countries in between, you know. So when some people discuss only problems of climate of particular region, so they are of no interest in people who live and work in cold countries, you know. So usually then I can't say that such research is not important, but simply it is not important for the readers that we have. And such research could go published nationally or regionally in some regional journals, or be published maybe in a neighboring country. For example, there are lots of countries which are bordering with each other. For example, if you take Korea and Japan, so they have lots of common features and cultural fields. So you can send, if you are a Korean researcher, you can send it to Japanese journal and you will get a lot of readers. And vice versa, if a Japanese scholar publishes his article in a Korean paper, he will get lots of readers and response. But sometimes if we as international journal decide to publish, then you can see that people are not reading, they are not downloading the paper. And of course, we don't make records, you know, how many this particular article was downloaded or read, but it gives you some idea if it was published in the right context.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Prof. Al. So it will be better if even if the research is small, but it would be better if the author could bring into a broader context.
You know, usually.
So it could be.
Each author, you know, even especially a young author, should give himself or herself a question, you know, will there be an interest in reading and, so to say, analyzing this article, you know, in say 3 or 4 countries? You know, you have to imagine, you know, will be people reading in 4, 5 or 6 countries. Or maybe this will be only my colleagues in my country, which will be maybe going and looking at international journal and benefiting. But then the question is, why should it be published to international audience if it can be successfully published on a national level? You know, the difference between national and international is not the quality of the research. It's not the quality. It's simply the amount of interest. If it is for interest only for readers of this particular country or this particular region, then it's a national or regional research. And if it's you know, interested for potentially for readers all over the globe, then it becomes an international publication. It's not. Let me repeat. It's not about the quality of the paper as such. And for example, I publish a lot of articles in my country, which I don't think are of any interest for people outside. So I don't send them to international journals. There is a question. It is important to select the right journal for your work. Okay, what is more specific about this? What should I add? What I am expected to add?
Is it looking for journal impact factor also important?
You know, impact factor. These are
question
of
from
course. You know, when I publish myself, when I send my journals, I am not. Usually, I'm not looking at any impact factor. Usually, I'm trying to send my articles to a journal which I like and respect. You know, if I am a reader of this particular journal, you know, if I know the contents of this journal, and if I think that it's a good journal, then I am sending my submissions. You know, very many people are now today choosing journals only on these kind of bureaucratic things. You know.
For requirement.
I know, but you know,
Yes.
the important thing is, you know, as I say, to satisfy the requirements, but not exclusively. Not exclusively. Sometimes I'm sending my articles to the journals simply because they are very interesting. For example, I was invited to be a special editor in a Iranian journal, which published an issue about architecture and mathematics. And I didn't care, you know, about the so to say any kind of reputation, because the problem was very interesting, and the submissions were very interesting, you know. So sometimes it's not the most important thing, you know. It's to find the highest ranking journal, because, you know, even if you send and if you are published by a very high ranking journal, it does not mean that you will have very many readers. Sometimes you can have more readers in a journal that is not that famous. You know, what I mean about finding a journal, it's not only, so to say, of course, the most important thing is to avoid predatory journals. Now you have very many journals which are not very serious, which are suspicious, you know. So sometimes I get a lot of letters in my mailbox saying publish in this journal. You know, I look and I say, I don't know this journal. Why should I publish my material? Usually when a researcher tries to publish something, you know, he usually, you know, I read the journal. You know, I go and I read not only what they published this year, but what they published 5 years ago, what they published 10 years ago. You know, what is this journal all about?
Okay, thank you, Prof. Al. So, any other questions, maybe?
Pak Edo, maybe I have some further question for Prof. Al.
Yeah, sure, please.
Prof. Al, you mentioned about the predatory journal. If we haven't know the editor or even have the chief of the journal, and if there's a new journal born, how do we know that the journal have a good impact? I mean, that's a good journal to be our to publish.
You know, there was a British professor of library science. His name is Beale. And you can find on internet the so-called Beale's list. This is a list of predatory journals and predatory publishers. He applied, so to say, the library research in order to go to these. These are not only journals, but there are lots of publishers who actually don't publish. Sometimes they say that we are publishers, but in fact they only. The same happens with book. For example, you send a book to them, and they publish and put it simply on internet. You know, the electronic version. And of course, they don't sell the book. You know, it's hanging there. You know, and they ask maybe $200, $300, or $400 for the book, which is not normal. And nobody reads this book. Nobody gets access. And there are, of course, journals who use some famous names. They take a name which is nearly the same as some well-established journal, and they pretend that they are the same journal. Now it's a big problem internationally. You know, I participated in some international seminars discussing these issues. So you have to be careful. Well, my advice is usually to go and look at the history of the journal. When the journal was established, who were the publishers, who were the editors. Also, you can always check, you know, how much these people are known. If I find that the editor of the journal, nobody knows, he has not published anything, So then how can I trust this journal? The other thing is, of course, to go and check the members of the of the editorial board, because serious journals, they have serious researchers as members of the editorial board. But now there are journals who simply make collection, and if you find that maybe 100, they have 100 people on their research board, it means they are just playing the game. They are not serious. But of course, this Biel's list, I can maybe write, you can check the internet, so-called Biel's, D-E-A-L-S.
You can write it in the chat, I think.
Okay.
Prof. Al.
Yeah, okay. I will try. Now, if I remember, oh no.
Or maybe you can share the link if you have any.
I will have to check if I am writing the name of the person correctly. I will have to check.
Okay.
Yeah. I cannot do this now, but something of the kind. So this is available internationally, and actually he stopped a few years ago. I think because these publishers threatened him with lawsuit. So he stopped renewing this journal. So I think the last, it will be 3 or 4 years old, you know, the information. He does not have the most recent information, but it's still this list is still good to understand who are serious and who are not serious publications.
Okay. Thank you, Prof.
Also, another thing is to check if they are recorded with Scopus or with this clarivative analytics. Of course, these list Scopus and clarivative analytics, they have also some journals which are not very good, but you won't find, you know, these kind of suspicious predatory journals there.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Al. It's well understood.
Okay, Prof. Al. So any other questions from the other audience or students? Uyanti, maybe? Uyanti already published in many journals.
If I do, yes.
Very
much. Actually, I am trying to to submit. Yeah, sorry, to submit my journal in one journal, especially in the context of design and IT. Yes. So I have tried to submit to the design studies journal. Yeah, but now it's in the process of decision to decision. It means that it's sent to the reviewer. So I do not know whether it is acceptable or not. Yeah.
Well, you know, if for example, if you get no, you should not get disappointed. You know, the problem that now journals have. Actually, if you are already, you know, if your history of the journal is already, you know, if you are a new journal, you know, then it's a problem, you know, to get authors. Now the problem is that, for example, I get 2 very big amount of articles, and of course, you know, if I accept all potentially interesting articles. And if they will be peer reviewed and in a positive way, then I will have a waiting list for 3 or 4 or 5 years, which no editor can accept. So sometimes they might refuse, not because of the quality of the paper, but simply that they have no space. And of course, we don't explain such kind of things. So things happen in different ways. Sometimes you can wait. You must wait for some time before the decision is taken. Sometimes I get letters from the authors. They submit a paper and they want in 3 or 4 days whether we take the paper or not. You know, we need time because sometimes, you know, I have also other duties. I am teaching. I am researching. I'm doing many more things, you know, and I cannot read, you know, immediately all the submissions that are uploaded. So sometimes it takes a week. Sometimes it might take some 10 days. You know, we don't usually don't keep for a very long time, more than 2 weeks. But sometimes you have to wait.
Okay. Yeah. So we have to be patient.
Yes.
How many
Unfortunately, of course, when each of us are the authors, we want everything very fast, you know. But if you get too many articles, you know, then I had a problem 2 years ago when we were moving from one publisher to the other. We had already a big amount of articles from the other publisher, which we had to incorporate, and my journal grew smaller. For example, 2 years ago, yes, or 3 years ago, I could publish 40 articles, 40 articles per year. Now they gave me space to publish 22 or 23 articles per year. So actually, my journal grew smaller because of financial reasons. You know, the publishers, the more articles you publish, the more financial expenses the publishers have. So there are sometimes, you know, economical reasons behind.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a question from a journal editor who joined us today. So the question is, which one is proper to the type of architecture article between IMRAT outline or free outline?
I don't know what is IMRAT outline. I don't know what is it.
What is IMRAT outline?
IMRAT mean introduction methods.
Introduction method.
There's specific structure of journal, Prof.
Yes.
Okay. I know what you mean. You see, it always depends on what kind of research you are presenting. You know, there are some, so to say, general requirements but sometimes very good journals, you can put everything in the introduction without specifying. It's always the question of style. If the journal is very technical, so you have to be very precise that each part should be so to say covered. But say in some journals you can have introduction covering also discussing your methods and literature. So there are more kind of formalized journals, and some of the journals are less formalized. For example, in my journal, we don't care very much, you know, whether each part is, so to say, because you can put everything in the introduction, you know, discuss your methods and your research points and whatever. It's not necessarily, you know, like in a school, you know, for school purpose, you know, or, you know, also, you know, that there is a difference, you know, when you present a dissertation and when you present the same text as a book, you have to change it because nobody wants to nobody reads these bureaucratic things, you know. You put everything into larger introduction, you know, but you write very specifically in the structure of dissertation.
Okay,
so I would be, if you want my personal opinion, I would be for a free outline. I am more supportive of free outline. because I think then it makes the whole text more readable, more interesting. But of course, this depends on what kind of, if the article, if the research is very technical, so then it should be put very precisely, each part, because then it is understandable. But if we deal with historical articles or theoretical articles, so free outline sometimes is far better than this IMRAT.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
Any
I
other
have only
questions,
10
maybe?
minutes because I have to switch to another important meeting. So if there are some questions, perhaps we can finalize.
Okay, I think we can wrap up now. And if there are questions from the audience, we can take the question in the notes and then send email to you. And we hope that you have time.
I could reply next week.
Yeah.
That's possible.
Okay. I think it's almost time. So Prof, I'll have another meeting after this. So I would like to give the time back to Dr. Ati. Thank you, Prof. Al. Bu Ati, please, if you have any speech for closing. Thank you again. Please, Bu Ati.
Okay, thank you, Pak Edo. Dear attendants, we have finished this interesting meeting about manuscript coaching. Now we get some knowledge about how to make an article, how to write article in the right way to be published in a reputable journal. So I think it's very important for us to make our article to be better, and we hope after this session from the student article, would you please, Prof. Al, to give a comment or to review some article of student article?
Sorry?
Would you please review some students' article?
Yes, I can.
Thank you very much.
Buati will send the articles to Prof. Al, and then Prof. Al will give some notes about the article.
Just the one thing, please have in mind that I have a heavy schedule, so I won't be very fast. I can't do that very fast, okay? So it takes a little time.
Okay.
A little time.
It's okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your sharing knowledge this afternoon, and thank you for Pak Edo, Pak Buyanti, Pak Reza, and other lecturer, and as well as for our student from master student and doctorate student. So please give big applause to Prof. Almantas. Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Al, and see you next time. And
yes, we still have one session, I suppose. Yes, next week.
We still have one, suppose. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Bye bye. Have a good day. Terima kasih adik-adik. Pak Edo, terima kasih.
Terima kasih
semuanya.
Oke.
Mohon maaf adik-adik jika ada agak terburu-buru pada siang hari ini karena Prof. Al sendiri juga ada acara, tapi tadi seperti yang sudah dijanjikan bahwa nanti beliau akan bisa mereview dengan sangat cepat. Baik, saya kira demikian. Terima kasih atas partisipasinya adik-adik. Terima kasih untuk panitia dan terima kasih atas submission dari papernya. mudah-mudahan nanti bisa berlanjut dengan kebaikan, dan saya masih berharap bahwa nanti di antara paper yang bagus ini akan bisa dipublish di jurnalnya Prof. Al. Masih kita nego. Baik, wabillahi taufik wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Mohon maaf jika ada kesalahan. Terima kasih Pak Edo selaku moderator dan yang lain-lain.
Sama-sama.
Ya, terima kasih.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Bu Atik.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Bu Atik.
Sama-sama.
Makasih Bu Atik.
Sama-sama. Cantik sekali. Mohon izin untuk live. Terima kasih Pak Agus.
Sami-sami Bu, matur
Terima kasih Mas
nuwun.
Reza.
Nggih.
Siap, Bu.